Hello and welcome to Tank and AFV News. My name's Tom, doing another quick little model review video here. Got another shipment of pre-built 172 scale stuff the other day in the mail. 5 of them, as you can see, obviously. These are all from Eaglemoss, which I've talked about before. They are on the lower end of quality, I would say, for 172 scale diecast, but there's two big advantages to their stuff. It's cheap to purchase for the most part, and they make models of vehicles that nobody else does, primarily old Soviet and Russian stuff, which makes sense because that's where they're based from, and that's where these were shipped from. So I was actually quite pleased because this package arrived like 3 weeks earlier than it was supposed to, according to the tracking information from eBay. That aside, why don't we just get right into it? Taking a look at these, we'll start here with this little one. Of course, this is a T-60, so a Soviet light tank from early World War II, so 1941. And this is a really nice, this is, by Eaglemoss standards, this one's really nice. In fact, I would say this one is about as nice as I would expect any company to make for 172 scale of this tank, and this was not terribly expensive either. So it's weird. Some of the Eaglemoss stuff, the quality really varies. Like I said, this one though, I'm quite happy with. Obviously, it's tiny. The turret rotates. That's it. The gun doesn't elevate, although it's so small and you don't really want to handle it much anyway. That's fine. Rubber tracks. So not much to say other than just it's interesting. I mean, this vehicle's so small. I mean, this turret on top's about the size of like the Commander's cupola turret on one of my M60 models. For size reference, in case anyone was wondering, this is a Hobby Master Panzer II. So you can see the T60 is a considerably shorter vehicle, smaller turret. About the same in terms of width, though. You can see there. This is a really nice model. This one here. This is a Hobby Master. Obviously, this is an early war Panzer II. I think the markings are Polish campaign. It's meant to represent. So, but anyway, it gives you an idea on size. So yeah, this is if you're looking for a T60, would not. I could recommend this one. No complaints there. Next up, moving into the Cold War era, an ASU 85. Now this vehicle is an assault gun, obviously, and unlike most Soviet assault guns of the period, which are just SU, this one has that A in there, which for their whatever the Russian word for airborne is. So this was intended as a light, something that was light enough that could be moved around by airborne means easily. And of course the Soviets did operate a pretty formidable airborne or air mobile capability during the Cold War. The model here, this one again is pretty nice for Eaglemoss. It's got log, that's always nice. And one of the reasons I like collecting 172 scale stuff, I mean obviously it's not as detailed as the larger more common 132 or 135th scale stuff, although I don't really have the time or the skill to really build that kind of stuff, and I don't have the room to store it. And I'm not interested in owning like super duper accurate, down to getting every little detail right representations of the vehicles. I like to have these sort of smaller ones where I can just sort of look at them and compare them, and I always learn something. You look at this stuff, you learn about it through books or videos, and it doesn't always. Still, when you have a 3D representation of it, you can learn some stuff for it. So for me, what I learned was I always assumed this vehicle was smaller than it is, but it's actually fairly large. I mean, here we have size-wise compared to just a World War II era SU 85. They're not that much different in size, honestly. Obviously, they're very different in weight. The SU-85 is twice the weight because this thing's got armor, whereas these ASU-85s really didn't because, they're meant to be air mobile. As far as the quality of this one is quite good for again for Eaglemoss, so I certainly no complaints on this one. I'm happy to add it to the collection. The gun does not move, but oh well. Doesn't bother as much on a direct fire weapon platform like that, just to have it pointing straight forward. Unlike this next one, which is the 2S3 self-propelled gun, unlike a lot of Soviet armored vehicles, this one actually has a nickname, but I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it. So I won't even try. This is, let's see, it's a 152 millimeter self-propelled howitzer, pretty much the Russian equivalent to the US M109. I don't have my interest or knowledge of self-propelled guns is not nearly as good as the meager things that I know about tanks. But this one was cheap, so I decided to add it in there. It's okay. The quality's not fantastic. It rotates. The gun does not elevate, and that's pretty irritating. I mean, it's one thing on a tank if the gun's just pointing forward. I don't care. On a self-propelled gun model, the gun should elevate. That's kind of the whole point of a self-propelled gun. It's you kind of, if you want to have it in any sort of an action pose, it should have the gun up, because on a self-propelled gun, if your gun's pointing that way, it's either in travel position or you're in a direct fire situation, which is not what you want to be in. So, if you really need to finish off your collection of self-propelled guns, this is the only option for the 2S3, and like I say, for what I paid, it's passable, but it's not fantastic. Next up is, this is one of my favorites, the T-28. 1930s tanks are just inherently cool because they're so weird, and these Soviet multi-turret things were about as weird as you get. So very happy to be able to add one of these to the collection. It's not a fantastic quality model. It's a little bit shiny, a little bit plasticky looking. The top turret does rotate. These other little sub-turrets are just part of the actual mold. They're not even separate pieces, but that's okay, because this is the only option for a T-28, and the T-28's too cool not to have. What can you learn from looking at this thing? Well, that this is a big, big vehicle. It's just tall. So let me compare it to, got my Panzer IV here. This is actually one that I built myself years ago. And as you can see, in terms of length, the Panzer IV is considerably shorter. It's considerably less height. They're about the same width at least. But, for basically having the same amount of firepower, realistically, they both have sort of a short-barreled 75 millimeter gun. You can see how this thing's just way too big and outdated by the time World War II rolls around. Although this is an early 30s design, so you sort of have to take that into account. What's the rest of the world building in the early 30s? Nothing as impressive as this, honestly. And then, of course, just because, another size comparison, compared to the T-35, the heavy, it's dwarfed. So just if anybody's wondered how big was the T-35 heavy, it was gigantic. This is like the longest model I have in my entire collection. It's even longer than a mouse. So, yeah, makes you realize how ridiculous this vehicle is for the size, because again, the gun is no better than what's in this T-28. In fact, it's a slightly older version of the older model 76 millimeter cannon. This one's got the D10 at least. So very pleased to add this to the collection. This was sort of the one I was looking forward to the most in this group. And then the last one is a IS-4. This one is decent looking. It's a little bit shiny, but not too bad. The paint job and markings, it's got the sort of the white road wheel, so it's kind of like in parade dress. This one, I kind of wonder if the scale's a little off, and I spent a bunch of time crunching numbers, and the best I can conclude is that, good lord, this is an incredibly compact vehicle. And I know Soviet heavy tanks of this era tended to be, but this thing is tiny, like when you look at it and compare it to other things, and I think the scale might be a little off. It might be a little more closer to like 170. It's not 176. It's not that far off, but I had the ruler and the calculator out, and it's just a really compact vehicle, you know. And I went and rewatched the Chieftain's video where he examines one of these at Kubinka, and you can sort of tell when he's standing next to it that the suspension really, the hull, it's not a tall vehicle at all. So if we can compare it, so here's a IS3. I mean, it's still even like shorter than the IS3. So either this and not as long. So either the model is off, or the IS4 was just really that compact. And it's sort of a weird looking vehicle. It's got such an aggressive step in the back there. It gives it an odd profile. So nonetheless, an interesting tank, not one that they built in large numbers, or I mean, even by they didn't build any of their heavy tanks in really big numbers. Although this one was like quite a small production run, as I understand it. And it's got log, so it's always nice to see that. Just funny because in the Chieftain video, there's the clamps he points out, but there's no actual log on the one at Kubinka. It's like, come on, guys, go out and get a log. It's not that hard. So those are the latest editions. Hopefully, you found this at least mildly interesting. I plan to do more of these. I've got one more order coming of a few more of these Eaglemoss ones, plus some other oddballs, including a IS7 that is not Eaglemoss, so the quality should be quite a bit better, if it makes it. Some of the things I've ordered have gotten canceled, and I've gotten refunds because they say that they can't ship it due to coronavirus. It's kind of weird, but hopefully we'll get the rest of them. And yeah, and hope if you like these, I'll keep doing them. If not, I'll just stick to books and talking about tanks in general. All right, we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks.